All right, now that we've completed our 12 star blocks, I want to talk just a little bit about adding the sashing and the cornerstones and some other variations and a little bit about borders and bindings. So to cut here's a quick tip for cutting your sashing strips. And that's always really fun to say. We need 31 sashing strips for this quilt. And I chose this yellow, is what we used in the original. And our blocks are measuring 13¼ inches by 13¼ inches. So just to make it fast and easy, I've cut 2 width of fabric strips that are 13¼ inches by 13¼ inches. And now I can just cut my sashing strips right across these pre-cut strips of fabric. So again, line it up so that this is on the straight edge of your cutting mat. And then I can use the straight lines on my ruler and the mat for a guide to trim off those selvage edges. And we're cutting 2½ inch wide strips. So from here, I can cut 4 sashing strips at once, 2½ inches by 2½ inches by 13¼ inches. And I cut 4 at once. Just moving my ruler right down this pre-cut length and so on, where I need 31. You should be able to get 17 per width of fabric, so you'll easily get that 31 strips. Can do the same thing with the 2½ inch by 2½ inch pink cornerstones. Cut 2½ by 2½ inch square and 2½ by 2½ inch strip, and then just use your ruler to cut those 2½ inch squares, cutting 2 at a time, right down the strip. And the fabric requirements, the cutting requirements, all of those are in your class materials. And there are multiple sizes of this quilt option, so you can find out how much you need for each quilt. Now, for sewing on those sashing strips and cornerstones, we're going to lay out our quilt. And because we've used different colors, you can use, as you can see in my quilt, I used different colors for my star points, different colors and fabrics in the strip piecing little pinwheel part. And so when you lay out your quilt, this one is 3 blocks by 4 blocks. You want to really play with your colors and get a nice balance, even all over colors and saturation, all those things. Once you have your quilt laid out, then that's when you're going to start adding the sashing strips and cornerstones. So first of all, we need to sew a sashing strip at the beginning. So imagine this is a row of 3 stars. We would start sashing strip, star block, sashing strip, star block, sashing strip, one more, our 3rd star block, and then finish with a 4th sashing strip. So you're going to sew 4 rows like that if you're making this size quilt. To create the rows with the cornerstones, we're going to start with a cornerstone, add a sashing strip, cornerstone, sashing strip, cornerstone, sashing strip, 4th cornerstone. Now pressing, we're going to press our seams always toward the sashing strips on both rows. So that eliminates having to press towards the star. We're pressing towards the sashing strip, so the seam allowances always lie underneath. Then on this row, once again, we press toward the sashing strips so that the seam allowances are going in on this row and out on this row. Then as we add the block rows to the cornerstone rows, those seams nest again. They butt up against each other, and it's really easy to get a nice square quilt because we've pre-cut the strips the right length, and we pre-cut our squares, and we've pressed well. And those rows come together quickly and really accurately. I talk a little bit more about have some great tips for adding your borders and bindings and keeping your quilt nice and square so it doesn't have those wavy edges, and getting a nice binding on in the class materials as well. Now finally, I just wanted to show, just because it's sometimes hard to visualize how a design looks in other colors or fabrics, I made a quick table runner using this same block. And you can see how differently it looks in different fabrics. So I challenge you to try it in some other fabrics and colors and really create a different look. This one, for example, all of the star points are the same color, whereas on the quilt I have a variety of colors in the star points. So there's so many options, so many ways to mix it up and make this block more interesting and create something that's personal to you. Finally, I'm going to wrap up talking about how to make this bonus quilt from the leftover pieces from creating your Spinning Stars block.